And we have liftoff. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. Welcome to today's BGLiD webinar. My name is Warren, and I'll be taking you through the session today. Hopefully, you can hear me all loud and clear, and you can see me in the bottom corner there. I'll be taking you through the session today. So my name is Warren. I'm the General Manager of CAS360 Ecosystem and Brand. Just before we get started, if you do have any questions throughout the session, please type them into the Q&A section on Zoom. I'll do my very best to answer every single question that you guys ask and get through today. And I will also say, because it's always the first question, yes, this session is being recorded and you will get a copy of the recording so that you can watch the replay in a couple of days' time. Before I get into the BGLiD session, I'll talk a little bit about BGL and our products. Many of you may have already used some of these apps, but we have CAS360, which is our company compliance application. So for all of your company trust needs. We have Simple Fund 360, which is our SMSF administration platform. So all of your SMSF needs. We have Simple Invest, which is essentially a version of Simple Fund for trusts and individuals and things like that. So you're able to do all of your investments that are non-SMSF effectively. And then we have Smart Docs, which is our newest application. It's an AI-powered paper-to-data solution, which effectively converts all of your documents to data. Also, we have the BGL Masterclass, which is coming up. We're launching later this month in Hobart. We are traveling to Adelaide, Perth, Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne for masterclass sessions. We are doing masterclass sessions for CAS360, Simple Fund 360, and Simple Invest 360. It is only $60 to come along, and you can attend all 3 product sessions if you like, or 2 if they're relevant to you. But it is only $60. Please come along and enjoy the sessions. It is a very much a training session and focused on getting the best out of the products. And if you are interested, you can just jump on the BGL website or Google BGL Masterclass and have a look at the content there. But that's out the way now. And what I'll do is get into the BGLiD webinar. So what I'm going to cover off today is I'll cover off a little bit of an introduction to BGLiD for those that haven't seen it before. So I'll go through what BGLiD is, how does it work, why you should use BGLiD, some of the benefits of BGLiD. And then when I get into the demo section, I will demonstrate some of the new features that we have released in early 2024. So we released many of these features in January and one last Thursday. BGLiD was launched back in October, and it's been great to see the take up so far. And I'll talk a little bit about what's next for BGLiD and some pricing information for those that aren't aware of the prices. So to start, what is BGLiD? So BGLiD is a client identity verification service. So it's all about being able to verify the identity of the people that you are representing as clients. It's designed specifically for accounting firms. There are a lot of identity verification applications out there. BGLiD is obviously built by BGL, and we are here to service the accounting industry, and it's built specifically for accounting firms and for accounting firm requirements. It's built directly into BGL applications. So it is a standalone application, but it's automatically built in to all of the BGL applications. And that starts with CAS360. The demonstrations I'll take you through today has BGLiD very tightly integrated into CAS360. And what we will be doing is integrating BGLiD with Simple Fund 360 and Simple Invest 360 coming soon. It's not here yet, but it is coming soon. There is no extensive setup or new application training required. Effectively, we just added a few buttons to the CAS360 application, and you're able to use BGLiD. There's no setup, no contract, no new thing that you need to sign up for. You effectively just put your credit card in if you haven't got one attached to your BGL account. If there's one already there, then you don't even need to do that, and away you go. So how does it all work? So BGLiD verifies the identity documents of your clients with the issuer. So what we are referring to here from an Australian point of view is the passport. That is verified with the Department of Foreign Affairs. The driver's license, if that is provided as an ID document, that is verified with the state road authorities. And one of the new features that we've added is Medicare, which is obviously a Department of Health issued ID card. So what we are doing is we are verifying the details of those documents, that they are true and correct, and that it is a legitimate document. So if you're going through the ID process of IDing a new customer coming in and they present to you a passport, a driver's license, or a Medicare card, you are able to verify that through BGLiD, or there's another way where you can request that to be effectively provided by the client, and that again will be verified. As part of the BGLiD process, though, it doesn't just stop at the ID verification stage. There is an important part of onboarding new clients about finding out a little bit more about them, or being alerted if there is something that you should know about them. So BGLiD will also complete AML screening, so anti-money laundering screening, on all of your new clients, on everyone that you run ID verifications on. This also includes PEP, which is politically exposed persons, and global sanctions screenings that will be done on the individuals as well. So we will be doing not only AML screenings, but political exposure and global sanctions. So I know that sometimes sanctions and things like that, political exposure, can be in the news for certain individuals. As part of BGLiD, that is done automatically with all of the ID checks. And then there is an additional search that can be done, and that is an adverse media screening. So if there has been any adverse media on that individual, you are able to have that screened as well. This is all done through Frankie One, which is an Australian business and is effectively our back-end provider through this. You receive an instant result. So there is no waiting around. The result is instant. It comes straight through, and you get your verification result, your success or failure, and obviously any AML, PEP, sanctions, or adverse media information coming through. And that includes an identity verification report, which is attached to the individual in CAS 360. So there are two methods or two ways to verify an individual, and this represents how you would meet or how you would obtain a new client. So the first way is the way that I'll show a fair bit of today, and that is request ID verification. So if you haven't met with the client, or if you haven't had that chance to go through that process with the client, what you're able to do is effectively have BGLiD email that client, requesting them to complete the verification themselves. Now, this is a nice way if you don't want to ever touch the identity document. I know that the TPB and the ATO have some recommendations around storing or not storing identity data. So if you're using the request for ID verification workflow, then effectively you're never touching the identity document. It is being verified through BGLiD, and you get the result, effectively saying that the identity is verified, and you don't have to store and record that identity card anywhere. You're able to cite it in an online meeting, for example, or something like that, but you're able to have it verified and without it being stored. The verify ID workflow, that's obviously the opposite scenario. That's where you have the ID information. So maybe the client has handed their driver's license to you or their passport to you, and you want to verify that in real time. Well, you can type the details in, click verify, and you'll get an instant response that license and that passport is actually a real one, and obviously the details are all correct. So you're able to do a request, which is effectively just an email, and get the client to complete it online, or you can click on verify ID, which is when you have the details and you can get them verified instantly. So both methods are available inside CAS 360 through BGLiD. It is important that both methods require consent. You are not able to run ID verifications on people that haven't consented to having their ID verified. So you must have consent to run a verification request, either through request ID verification, which is built in. The consent is actually built in because the user has to tick the button to consent. But obviously with verify, when you have the details, you need to make sure that you have consent to run that verification. No different to when you're doing a credit check for a loan and things like that. You do need to ask that, or at least advise that you're going to be doing these checks. So next Next slide, obviously, BGLiD does not store the identity data in the products, okay? So you can, once you've done the check, you can remove that. It's not stored in there. And even in the report, it doesn't contain the verification particulars like the passport number, driver's license number. It effectively says driver's license verified, okay? So it does show what ID was used, but it doesn't actually go into saving and keeping that record in your hands. Again, trying to comply here with the TPB and ATO recommendations. So you will be able to see the result, you'll be able to see the document type and the name of date and date of birth that was used to verify. Okay, so you're able to obviously do a little bit of cross-checking to make sure that the name and date of birth match both the identity document and your records. Okay, but it doesn't have that, you know, passport or driver's license number. For the AML, political exposure and adverse media information, this is all shown to you because this is actually public information. There's nothing private about that particular data. It's actually a public database. So you will get all of that information provided inside CAS 360. So why should you be using BGLiD? Well, both the ATO and TPB have issued client ID verification recommendations. And the recommendation is to effectively be ID verifying all new customers, okay, effectively since the 1st of July 2023, going through a process of ID verifying all of your customers. So BGLiD assists in satisfying those requirements because what we are able to do is verify through either the verify option where we have the license in front of us and we can verify that it's legitimate, or go through the request for information, which is effectively getting the ID details off your client and getting them to verify. So you're able to make sure that you are satisfying those requirements or those recommendations. The next phase, though, is getting past the ATO and TPB recommendations, and that is effectively minimizing your risks. So you are able to know who your client is, and you're able to verify who your client is. If a client was to provide you with a driver's license and you went through a verification process to verify it and it came back that it wasn't them, it wasn't their driver's license, it was potentially a fake ID, how would you handle that situation? I suppose the better question is, would you be able to handle that situation today? Do the processes you have today, would they be able to pick that particular information up, or would it effectively just go through and you would take that client on? So knowing your client and verifying that that person is who they say they are. So verifying a client before you take them on. It's important to know who you are representing to the government authorities. You know, you are effectively the person in the middle between obviously the business or the investment vehicle and the regulator. So making sure that you are effectively protecting yourself, or making sure that you've done at least some due diligence when picking up that particular client. You may have also seen, I know that I followed it, but you may have also seen last year that there's some AML and CTF legislation in Australia, and it's been around for a while. And there's tranche 1, which is activated, and there's tranche 2, which isn't activated yet, but there's been some discussion on it. And that is tranche 2 includes accountants and lawyers and real estate agents effectively having to legally, through AML legislation, having to ID verify customers as well. And obviously this, if that legislation was triggered, then there would be a legal requirement to have to do this through the AML legislation, not just the ATO and TPB recommendations. So the benefits of BGLiD is that you get, well, one of the main benefits of BGLiD is that you get simple access to identity verification. There's no signing up for a new app. There's no going out and sort of having to sign a new contract with a minimum agreement to do 50 new client verifications every month. The benefit of BGLiD is it's built into your existing application. Okay, so you don't need to go and source a new application. There's no lock-in contract. There's no monthly minimum that you need to sign up for. You simply pay as you use. So if one month you onboard 10 new clients, then you pay for the 10 verifications. The next month you only onboard 1, you only pay for the 1. There's no monthly minimum. You pay as you use. It's made by us. It's made by BGL, and hopefully you can trust us. You trust us through our SMSF, through our company compliance, through our investment register, and hopefully through our ID verification as well. And it is supported by the BGL support team. So we have a team based in Melbourne of about 24 that are available to take any queries or support you along the way should you have any questions. So that's a bit of an overview of BGLiD. So if you haven't seen it before, hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of what the product is and how it works, and I suppose some of the benefits of the products. If you do have any questions, as I said, please feel free to type them into the Q&A, and I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll get started on some of the new features. So we've obviously released BGLiD a few months back, and what we've done is taken a lot of client feedback on board to build our next sort of phase of features. So the first feature I'm going to talk about here is automatic retry. So what we have done is when you go through an ID verification process, what can sometimes happen is your client can type in the wrong details. Maybe 6 looks like an 8 on their driver's license. If you have a look at the back of your driver's license, there's a document number. It can be very small, and sometimes people can make mistakes. Now, generally with traditional ID verification apps, if you make a mistake, it's bad luck, you get charged, and away you go. You have to effectively retry the whole process again. What we've done in BGLiD is we've built automatic retry. And what that will do is if there is a mistake the first time with a client's ID verification, what that client is able to do is they will actually get an email, and I'll show you what the email looks like. They'll effectively get this email, and it will say to them, please resubmit their identity. So unfortunately, your ID verification submission was unsuccessful, and can you please resubmit your verification? So effectively what we've added is a second chance, a free second chance. So there's no additional cost for this. Effectively you go, if your client goes through the process to verify their identity, if they make a mistake through that process, there will not be an additional charge. They will get a free retry. So we've built a whole workflow for that, including this particular email. You can customize all of the emails for BGLiD, but the first feature is automatic retry. So all of your ID verifications will have automatic retry. The second new feature, and this is the big one, and this is two-source document verification. So as part of the TPB requirements, they would like there to be 2 source documents where possible. Now, there are a mix of different documents, but effectively 1 photographic ID and 1 non-photographic ID. Although you can have 2 photographic IDs, generally there's a bit of a premium on photographic IDs because they allow you to obviously have a photo as well. So what we have added is the ability for 2 source documents. So I'll show you how this works. So I'll just jump into my CAS 360. Let me close that screen down. And what I'm going to do is just go into my contact screen, and I'm going to start my ID verification. So this is effectively how you do all of your ID verification requests. So I'll just search for my individual. Now you can obviously go through the process and click on add an individual and add that individual, and straight away click save and request ID verification. Now, if the ID verification of the contact, has already been added, like I have in this case, it's all we need to do is just click on that contact and request their ID. So I've got here my individual. So Warren Adam Rendon is the individual I'm going here, and I've just got some details of this individual. So I've already got their address, their birthday, mobile number, and email address. You can see here I've got BGLiD enabled, and I'm going to click on request ID verification. What will happen now is up will come my request ID verification screen, and I've got here my 2 types that I mentioned earlier. I've got my Australian government ID check, which is the government ID verification, anti-money laundering, and global sanctions database. And then I've got my GovID advanced, which is those 3 data sources, and then the adverse news database as well. So you can see the prices there, obviously $7 and $10. In the event that you want your client to verify with 2 ID sources, that's pretty straightforward. All we need to do is change the 1 to a 2, and they're able to go through that process of selecting 2 sources. So if I click on proceed, what will happen now is we're going to send this email off to myself, effectively, requesting the ID verification. So if you haven't gone through the ID verification or the request for ID verification flow, that's as easy as it is. It's 2 or 3 clicks. Simply click on request ID verification, select which type that you want to send out, hit send. Obviously, we've got a default email template. You can customize that email template, make it look however you want. And now it has been sent off to your client. That's it. That's all that is required. So what I'm going to do now is just head over to my emails and open up that email. So effectively, here is the email that has been sent. This is effectively the email that your client will receive. And it says identity verification, obviously from Warren Test, which is my firm name, but it has the details here. And it outlines, obviously, that the information is used to verify the identity. And then we have that it will expire in 21 days. You have 21 days to complete the ID verification. And all your client needs to do is click on verify identity. This will take them through to BGLiD. And from here, they are able to complete their identity verification with those 2 sources that I have mentioned before. So we click on send code. Now, we're all very used to 2-factor codes these days. They've become an integral part of our life. None of us like them, but we all have to have them. So I'll just get my code. And what I'm going to do is just put in here my 2-factor code. That's now been verified. And effectively, this is how your client will see their BGLiD verification. So up will come some information. Obviously, we have a nice, simple screen for your client to use to complete their ID verification. Obviously, it has their name and their address, date of birth, and place of birth. And then we've got the verify identity that does mention here that they're required to provide 2 identification sources. So obviously adding support for that 2 ID verification sources. If I now move over to my add identification option, I'll see here my 3 sources that I'm able to offer. So driver's license, passport, and Medicare. Now, in regards to Medicare, it's obviously new and it's part of the new features as well. So we've added Medicare card verification support. So we can now verify Medicare cards. However, Medicare, because it is a non-photographic ID, it can only be used with the 2 identification sources option, because you are, again, through the TPB requirements, required to either provide a photographic ID. Okay, so passport, driver's license, and is mandatory, one of those, and then you can use Medicare as a secondary option. Obviously, if you've got passport and driver's license, you can use both as well. All right, so a combination of the 2, whatever the client has handy, I guess, is probably the easiest one. But if I was to click on now passport, up comes the passport card, and I can complete that. If I wanted to add then Medicare, I can click on Medicare, and I can go through the process of adding that as well. So I'll talk a little bit about passports here. Because we verify with the Australian Passports database, what the requirement for passports is that the passport is registered with the Australian government. So it can be a foreign passport, okay, but it just needs to be registered with the Australian government. So that will generally be visa and PR holders will have their passport registered, okay. If you do have an event, in the event of a foreign director, for example, that's for all intensive purposes never been to Australia and their passport's not registered with the Australian government, right now you're not able to verify that, okay? So you won't be able to verify that document through the passport or through BGLiD. But effectively, we can, anyone that is a PR or has a visa in Australia will be able to use their foreign passport to go through the ID verification. Obviously, all Australian passports are fine because we are verifying with the Australian government's records. But I do want to make that point clear. It's not just Australian passports. Foreign passports are accepted. They just need to be registered in Australia. So what's required here is obviously we go through, put the details of that particular passport in and enter in a passport number. So I'm just going to put a dummy number in, obviously an issue date and an expiry date. And passports still have genders. So there you go, put the gender in. Now I can move on to my second ID source. Now, with Medicare, again, what we have to do is obviously make sure that we've got the name details correct, date of birth, and then enter in the card number. Okay, so please enter in the card number and then the different Medicare card types. Obviously, we want to verify the right card type. There's not too many blue and yellows. There's some, but obviously the majority are green. And then we can put in the expiry year, the expiry month, and the reference number. So hopefully we're all familiar with what the reference number is in regards to a Medicare card. So it's just the number of the card. Now, if I just remove out the Medicare card, I'll just show you driver's license. So driver's license, again, we support all states. We also support New Zealand driver's licenses at this stage. Now with driver's licenses, each state, they're wonderful. They do have their different ways of doing it. So if I have a put in my issue country, go through the details of putting in my driver's license. If I select Victoria, for example, I've got my license number, my expiry date, and my card number. Now you might be thinking, what's the card number? So what we've done is we've put what's this, a link here for your client to be able to go through and select what state and where their card number will be. So if you're in the ACT, it's along the side. If I go to Victoria, depends when it was issued, but it's generally on the back, either down the bottom or up the top. But effectively, you need the license number and the card number. It will just make the verification work. Both are mandatory for the verification, but we do have some ways that obviously we can help identify to your clients where they need to get that data from. Once the data has been entered in, okay, you are then able to click on submit, or your client is able to click on submit. And what that will do is that will submit the request and send it through our verification service and then straight through to CAS 360. So there's a couple of questions here that I'll try to get to. A new client is 17, has no driver's license, no passport, and still on mum and dad's Medicare card. So obviously, Deb, in this particular situation, we won't be able to verify their identity because we do need one of the driver's license or a passport. Okay, so just to answer that question, I mean, it is obviously hopefully a point in time thing and generally not too many 17-year-olds coming on board. But if there is no photographic ID, that is the requirement. That is the ATO and the TPB requirement. Now, there is a couple of other source documents that they can provide. I think that please don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure like birth certificate, Medicare card is obviously one of them as well. But generally, the requirement is to have a photographic ID. So obviously, if he's got a photographic ID that is can't be verified through a third party, it does make it a little bit challenging. But I guess that what we're referring to there is something that's sort of a little bit outside of the norm. So in those situations, yeah, it might have to be a more manual process as opposed to using a BGLiD sort of process. Again, here, armed services may not have Medicare. They may have DVA gold cards. Again, what we are trying to do, Deb, I'll say in general terms, is add more verification services as we go. So right now we have driver's license, passport, and Medicare. There are a couple of others that we can add, but I think that going forward, we'll end up also looking to add the ability to upload and have that verified by the accountant as well. So potentially being able to upload documents. But as new cards become available to us, then we're going to look to add them. Question here, if a foreign director visited Australia before and has applied for a visa, does that mean their passport is registered? It's a great question, Anita. I'll have a look into it. I don't know off the top of my head, but generally, yeah, if it's registered, I mean, I think that with registered, they would need to have not just like a travel tourist visa. I think they would need to have one of the various visas to have some sort of permanent residency here. So I hope that answers the question. Obviously, just a standard traveling visa wouldn't apply, I don't think, but I will verify it. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, and yeah, Deb, I understand. So what I'll do is I'll go back now to CAS 360 and I'll show you what the verification report will look like. Obviously, in this case, I'm verifying me, so I'm not going to verify me, but I'll show you how this would come through for a standard client. So if I go back to CAS 360, on my left-hand side, I've got my identity verification filter. I click on some verified, take out rendered out of the search, that would help. Have a look at my verified IDs. So here are all of my verified clients. And what I'm able to do is go and have a look at the verification. So if I have a look at James, for example, here, if I go over to the compliance tab, I can see here that I've been able to pass the ID verification. I'll talk a little bit about the PEP and sanctions fail, but the government ID verification has passed. And I click on my report. And here is my report that goes through the process of showing me that James, test 11 here, has had his ID verified, okay? And I can see the ID has been verified using the passport, okay? The status was passed. I did it just before the webinar, so it only happened an hour ago. And the name that appeared on the identity document was James G test 11, which is good because it's a match. And obviously the date of birth that appeared on the passport matched the date of birth that I have in my records. So we can see here that we've been able to not only verify the passport, we verified that the name and the date of birth on the passport matches the name and date of birth in my client record. So here we're obviously very convinced and happy that this person has been able to complete their ID verification. So all of those, obviously, contact records will be stored with the ID verification, okay? So all of that is there. If I go and have a look at a couple of other screens, we can see all of our requests that we have sent. So if I go to my messages, my outbox screen, or my ID verification screen, sorry, I can see here are all of my, effectively my verifications that I have sent out, and I can see that I've still got a few that are pending responses. Okay, so you do have a screen which will show you all of your ID verification requests, which brings me to my next new feature. So you may have seen this one, but when I was going through the process of requesting an ID verification, let me just find my contact, give me a second. But when I was going through the process of requesting my ID verification, what I had was a couple of options around reminders. So the next feature I'm going to show you is the ability for you to send a reminder. So I've got here my ID verification. Now I've already talked about two sources, so we've covered that. But what we have also added is the ability for you to add automatic reminders. So when you are sending your ID verification request, sometimes they can be left in flight. Sometimes the client isn't all that good at completing the tasks we ask them to do. Who would have thought? So what we've done is we've added automatic reminders to the BGLiD verification requests. So what I've got here is my client, where I'm going to send them a request for ID. And then what I can do is I can add an automatic reminder. So I'm going to say for this client, I'm going to say, remind them in 5 days' time. So now when I go through the process of sending that request to, in this case, Jess or Jessica, Jessica's going to get her email. But if after 5 days she hasn't completed the ID verification, BGLiD will actually send a reminder asking them to complete the ID verification. Okay, so automatic reminders have been built in. For those of you that are using CAS 360, hopefully you're very familiar with automatic reminders because it uses obviously the same concept, but we have automatic reminders for document deadlines, automatic reminders for annual reviews, automatic reminders for company debt, and now automatic reminders for BGLiD verifications. So that has been built in. The next new feature I'm going to talk about is around completion. So once the ID verification has been completed, you as the accountant, as the requester, the one that made the request, you receive obviously confirmation in CAS 360, but you can also now choose to receive confirmation through to your email as well. So instead of just having confirmation in the application, confirmation comes through to your email. So you get to know about the verification without logging in. So what we've got here is a couple of options. Obviously the ability to turn it off so you don't get an email, but then you can have the sender, which is you, receiving the confirmation, or just you. You can have the client receiving the verification or the confirmation that their ID was verified, or you can select both. So in this case, sender and the client. So you will receive the confirmation that it's been completed, and so will your client. So you've got the ability now to have completed verification emails as well. So as you can see, we've got a fair few emails going through here. Obviously, the initial email, there's automatic retry if it fails. So the client gets another retry for free, no additional cost. Automatic reminders if your client doesn't get back to you or doesn't complete the verification quickly. And obviously when they do complete the verification, they'll get a verification complete email. So we've really tried to complete the whole workflow here so that there's really no gaps. There's a couple of questions here that I'll get back to. Question RE, automatic retry. If we, the accountants, type in the client's name wrong or date of birth wrong, will we have to pay again or do we get a free try? It's a good question. At this case, so that is the verify workflow. So the verify workflow doesn't have automatic retry. Only the request for information has automatic retry, but and that's purely because it's got a workflow for it. So I can look into that for you, but at the moment, no, the verify workflow, which I haven't shown, doesn't have automatic retry. And then the next one here, if you're just sending the photo ID details, i.e. license number, input in the new client, and you aren't seeing the actual license to check the photo matches the person, how do you know the ID hasn't been used, isn't stolen? Look, this is obviously the thing that we're trying to resolve here, Katie. So obviously, if you're going through the process of ID verifying that person, you have to put all of their names on all of the documents. So what we are doing in this process is going through and verifying that that license and that passport is actually a legitimate license and passport. So that's where I suppose the differentiation is. Where by going through the BGLiD process, we're able to identify that it is an official issued document, okay? And certainly if you're doing 2 ID verifications, you're able to verify the identity document against 2 different legal databases. So the passports database, driver's license database, Medicare database. So what you're able to do is actually verify that it's a legitimate document. Now, if it's been marked as stolen and things like that, it can also come up as a fail because it's been stolen. And obviously, as long as one of the databases has had it sort of set as stolen or lost, for example, then that will come back as well. Okay, so but what you are able to do is not just look at a card and move on. You're able to look at the card, verify that the card is a legitimate issued card and that it hasn't been marked as a stolen identity or an identity document. So you do have some added protections. Obviously, the most complete protection is something that we're actually working on, and I'll touch on that in the next slide. So just to recap a couple of those features that I went through, automatic retry, which allows your client, when you're doing a request to ID verification, a chance to retry. 2 source documents, so you're able to now verify across 2 source documents. Australian Medicare card verification, so you're able to Medicare card verify through ID. Automatic reminders for clients that aren't that great at getting back to you. Automatic completed emails so that you can be notified and your client can be notified that the completion, the process has been completed. And we've also added the verified name and on the verification report. So verified name and verified date of birth have been added to that verification report. So I'll talk a bit about release and then I'll talk about what's coming soon, which is how I'll answer that next part of your question, Katie. So BGLiD is live in Australia and New Zealand. It has been live in Australia and New Zealand since last year and obviously getting great take up. If you have CAS 360, there's nothing stopping you having a try. It's all there available for you today. Everything I've shown you today is released. So you can access it all and we'll be launching BGLiD in Singapore very soon, which is exciting. In terms of pricing, so we have the Australian Government ID check, which is $7 plus GST, and that will go through your government ID, anti-money laundering, global sanctions, sort of your PEP exposure, so those sort of 3 checks. The Australian Government ID plus adverse news, which is those 3 checks, government ID, money laundering, sanctions, and then your media screening, so that's an extra $3, so $10 plus GST. And then the one that is coming soon, which is biometric scanning. So the next phase or the next feature that we are looking to release for BGLiD is biometric scanning. And what this is, and I know that many of you may have done this before, certainly if you've signed up for a crypto site, it's standard on crypto sites these days, but even some betting sites are going down this path as well. Biometric scanning is effectively where you have to take a photo or a live video of your face, and you upload that through the BGLiD workflow, and then that is matched against the photo on your ID. So we are working to bring this to BGLiD, which is obviously some pretty cool technology. So biometric scanning is obviously the big new feature for us. We will also be offering media screening and AML screening only. So if you wanted to do some media screening and AML screening only on individuals, biometric scanning obviously being the big one, and then integration with more applications. And this is what you will see coming through in the next few months. So integration with Simple Fund 360 and Simple Invest 360. We are talking with Xero about adding the results into Xero Practice Manager. We know we can do it through custom fields. We think there's a better way if we work together to put them in the right spots. And I think that we can do that. And there's a few other applications that we're working with as well, which I won't go too much into, but we're very excited to be able to integrate BGLiD across not just the BGL suite, but across a number of apps that you are using in your practice. And that's really what we're looking to do. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along today.